Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, brothers and sisters. This is going to be a very quick and short video about one of the things that Jay Smith keeps repeating in most of his video when he's talking about the Quran, which is the idea that Hafsa, the wife of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the daughter of the second caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, put the Quran under her bed for 20 years. We're talking here about the first Mus'haf that was compiled by Abu Bakr. I understand that this topic is not so important. The goal of this series is to expose Jay Smith to his followers for the liar that he is, and to show that the information he gives them is not just false, but also absurd. Very, very absurd. So let's begin with Jay Smith's claim.
So here they have, back in 632, they put together this one copy. Zayd ibn Thabit does it all by himself. He gives it to Abu Bakr, who gives it to Umar, who gives it to his daughter, who is the widow of Muhammad. Her name is Hafsa. And what does she do with it? Well, she sticks it under her bed. Rather a stupid idea to stick it under your bed. Why would you put it under your bed if this is the only copy you've got? If this is the one and only copy you got, it stays there for 20 years. Let's not.
He took it from bones, stones, he took it from any place he could, and he created that first Quran. That was the first one written down. He gives that to Abu Bakr, who gives it to Umar, who gives it to his daughter Hafsa, who had been a wife of Muhammad, and she stuck it under her bed. What an idiotic thing to do. Why would you put something that is the greatest revelation in the history of mankind, the only one written down, why would you stick it under your bed? Obviously, it wasn't very important to her. So what happens? It sits under the bed. Meanwhile, 20 years later, let's go now 20 years, and let's go now to volume 6, hadith number 510.
So the man that first wrote it down was named Abu Bakr. I'm giving you a history lesson here. Please don't go to sleep on me. That was in 632. That was then given to one of Hafsa's wives. She put it under her bed and left it there for 20 years. What an idiotic thing to do. Why do you leave a Quran under your bed? If this is the greatest revelation for mankind, why do you put it under your bed? That's the first question you need to ask. Nonetheless, she left it under her bed. And because she left it under her bed, 20 years later, there were many different Qurans. Well, lo and behold, wouldn't you guess that? If there's only one, and it's nowhere to be seen, and no one's looked at it, you can imagine many other Qurans start to appear, right?
So basically, the tradition says that the Mus'haf was with Abu Bakr, and after his death, it was given to the second caliph, Umar, and after his death, it was given to his daughter Hafsa, and Hafsa kept it under her bed till Uthman requested her to send it for the second compilation. Jay claimed though that the period this Quran stayed with Hafsa was 20 years. And this is absolutely hyperbolic and false. Before we start explaining why this is false, I would like to know where exactly did Jay come up with this idea that the Quran stayed with Hafsa for 20 years? I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think there is any source that specify how long the Quran stayed with Hafsa before Uthman requested it. So where did he get it from? Well, I think I know. As we know from the Islamic sources, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the first caliph, died in 634 and Uthman died in 656. I think he calculated the time between the death of Abu Bakr and the death of Uthman, which is approximately 22 years. So it's not 20 years accurately, it's 22 years. But this is the only way through which you can get this 20 years period, because the Islamic sources do not mention the 20 years period at all. Now, what's wrong with this analysis? Well, a lot. First, it assumes that Uthman compiled the Mus'haf just few years before his death, and there's no evidence for that whatsoever. In fact, we have plenty of evidence to the contrary, as we are going to see. Secondly, and more importantly, Jay completely excludes the second caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab from the picture. Umar actually ruled for 10 years. He didn't rule for 1 or 2 years, so you can take him out of the picture. If you want Muslims to laugh at a claim, you couldn't have done it any better. Now, let's leave this crap aside and let's see what the tradition actually says. The tradition says that Abu Bakr died in 634. That time, the Mus'haf was given to Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph, who ruled for 10 years and died in 644. After his death, the Mus'haf was given to Hafsa. So the Mus'haf was given to Hafsa in 644, not in 632, because Umar died in 644. Hafsa kept the Quran under her bed. Now we come to Uthman. Uthman ruled for 12 years, from 644 to 656. In order for us to know how long the Quran remained with Hafsa before Uthman requested her to send it to him, we need to know the time between the death of Umar ibn al-Khattab, because that's the date on which the Quran was given to Hafsa, and the date of the compilation of the Mus'haf, because that's the date when Uthman requested Hafsa to send the copies to him. All we need to know is, when did Uthman request Hafsa to send him the Mus'haf? Do we have in the tradition any evidence that can clarify which year did Uthman compile the Mus'haf in? And the answer is yes. If only Jay had little knowledge on the Islamic sources, he would have known the answer. First of all, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who was very controversial in this event, died in 650. So now we realize that the Mus'haf must have been compiled before 650. So probably from 644 to 649, within this period, the Mus'haf was compiled. Another thing is, Ubay ibn Ka'b died in 649, and we know that Ubay was one of the companions who participated in the project of compiling the Mus'haf. So now we realize that the Quran must have been compiled before 649, from 644 to 648. And finally, we have this evidence that shows us when exactly the Mus'haf was compiled. This is from Kitab al-Masahif for Ibn Abi Dawud. And in this account, in this source, Uthman is talking to the people, and he's saying that the Prophet died 15 years ago. So this event of compiling the Mus'haf took place 15 years after the death of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ died in 632. 15 years later, it is 647. Umar died in 644. So the Quran stayed with Hafsa from 644, the date on which Umar was killed, till 647, when Uthman requested it. Most probably less than 3 years. How did this 3 years turn into 20 years? Well, you shouldn't be surprised if you knew that you are listening to Jay Smith.
She put it under her bed and left it there for 20 years.
Sits under the bed. Meanwhile, 20 years later.
This is the one and only copy you got. It stays there for 20 years. Let's not.
And here we go again, another example of Jay Smith disrespecting his followers. Get used to it. This is not going to be the last time you realize that Jay Smith is deliberately lying to you. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.